PeachCast, 우리의 언어 학습 여정.
Today we're going to talk about our language learning stories, and I'm Michelle, and
I'm Ian, so it should be good. We're going to talk about English and Korean and other languages we've learned. So should be good.
yes, we are obviously language people, right? So I learned English, and I'm a native Korean, and
Yes, I'm a native American. Well, no, I'm not. I'm not a native American. I'm American. Native American is different.
right.
And I'm learning Korean, and I've learned a little bit of Spanish in middle school, but to be honest, I've kind of forgot all of it. Well, not all of it, but
Yes, I learned Chinese for 3 years in my high school days.
Oh, wow.
Yes, so
I did not know that.
I can speak Chinese a little bit, but very baby Chinese.
Like what is it, like 我是 Ian?
我是 Ian is
我
like
是
I am Ian.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. It's like
more than that,
이안입니다.
though.
Why did you choose Chinese?
Because in my high school days, China was one of those rising countries. So Chinese was seen very promising. And I was interested in Chinese character as well. So probably I thought that could be easier for me to learn Chinese. And I found it very interesting and attractive as well. But not, I was more into English. So I just dig into English, and I kind of like gave up Chinese.
Interesting.
So
when did you, because obviously all Koreans learn English starting in elementary school, right? 초등학교?
Mostly, but nowadays they start from very early ages.
Right, like hagwons, right?
Yes.
But like
3 years
without
old.
hagwons, like it's 초등학교, right?
Yes.
Okay. So when did you first start, and then what did you think, and then when did you kind of like really starting getting interested in the language, do you think?
So in Korean age, when I was 8, my mom taught me English alphabets. So she wrote me down these big letters and small letters in English. And that's when I fell in love with English.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
I was so interested in alphabets, and like those curvy letters were really attractive.
Interesting.
So yes, so that's when I fell in love with English. And after learning alphabet, I asked my mom, I want to go to English hagwon.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
I'm sure she was delighted to hear that.
Yes, she was so happy. She was so happy.
Yeah.
So she was looking for some appropriate English hagwon for me, and I was really lucky to have the first teacher. My first teacher, and she was really good in every way, because she taught herself. Even though that was like very long time ago, and in Korea there were not many Korean teachers who could speak or pronounce appropriately, like they're so in vocal ways, like how to sound Korean and English are so different.
Yeah.
But back then I met this first teacher, and her pronunciation was really good. So she taught me how to pronounce English, and I was really lucky. So I found it really interesting. So I was kind of like geek girl, like bookworm girl, like when I was in school. So when everybody hates English, I loved English.
That's interesting.
So yes, I just kept studying, and but we in Korean schools we can't learn how to speak English. We only learn how to listen English or how to read English. So I was only good at listening and reading. But I thought my English was like really good because I always got 100 points, but I realized that my speaking level was so low when I went to America for exchange student.
How old were you then?
I was 22. I was 21, 22.
Interesting.
Yes. And I could understand what Americans told me at the time.
Yeah.
But I just could never say back. And when I say back, like the topic was moved. And I was like, oh, this is so frustrating.
Like they had already moved on?
Yes, they already moved on because it took me
You
so long time
Yeah.
to make sentence. And when I just speak out, then, the topic is already changed to another topic.
Right.
So I felt so frustrated. And that's when I realized, wow, I thought my English was so perfect because I already got so many perfect points in English subject in Korea. But I was only good at reading and listening.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, my speaking level is so low. And that's very frustrating. And that's when I started working on speaking English. And yes, I try to make American friends, and I try to speak English as much as possible.
Yeah.
And I try to think even in English. That's when I started. So I started kind of late.
So when you first started speaking then, because everyone I feel like everyone has their own style of learning a language, right? Some people like reading, some people like writing, some people like watching movies. What style of learning do you think accelerated your speaking the most?
I think mimicking the movie scripts and trying to use that expression in real life helps me the most. Because when I watched a movie or American TV series, which I really love, especially at the time, I was binge watching every American series very, very much. And when I found some new word or the word that I don't know, then I just stop the screen and then I just capture the screen and then I just look for the dictionary and then memorize it. And then when I ever have a chance to speak that word or vocab, then I try to use that new words in real life English, with my American friends, or even, I talk to the air, I just try to use that word and to make in mine, So I think that helped me the most.
Interesting. So, because for conversation, right, you can't always speak to a native speaker, right? So would you just say it out, basically out loud, or how would you do that?
Not like a crazy person, but I just talk to myself quietly, but still I just speak out loud as well. Spoke out loud. I think this experience helped me a lot as well. So there was this native English teacher who came for teaching English, and actually I was one of her students. And I went to conversational English 학원 at the time when I was 27, I guess. Okay. And my English speaking level was good, but not native or, not very fluently. But, well, I guess I was 27 and she was 25. So we were about the similar age zone. And then she suggested me hey, can you teach me Korean? Because she wanted to learn Korean. And she was willing to pay me for teaching Korean. And I told her hey, I don't want to get paid for teaching you, but instead, when I teach you, then you can't speak with me for 1 hour. I can teach you 1 hour for Korean, but you can speak with me in English for 1 hour.
So a full-on language exchange. Then.
Yes. So I met her, and then I taught her Korean for 1 hour, and then I talked with her in English for 1 hour. So basically I had this 2-hour session of speaking English every week with her, because anyways I had to speak in English to teach her as well, right? So that helped me a lot. And that kind of gave me confidence as well, because I knew already a lot of English expressions, but I just never had a chance to speak out loud.
Yeah, it kind of gave you that very natural conversational situation.
Yes, right.
Which is really important, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
And to teach Korean in English was more difficult than I thought, because I thought it was going to be really easy because I'm Korean, and
Right.
Korean is so easy to me, right?
Right.
But teaching Korean was a whole different story, because I just don't know how to explain this principles and grammars,
Yeah.
So I needed to think a lot in a very new and fresh way to teach her. So that made me think hard, like in every way. So that helped me a lot.
Interesting. I do think learning a different language helps you teach your native language better.
Yes.
Because it allows you to see those patterns that you can explain to people. Because when I first started teaching English, it was like, I'd get these questions and I'd be like, I've never thought about that before. And I'd have to think about the reasoning. But if I wasn't learning another language, I kind of wouldn't have that like reasoning of where to find why it's that way.
Right.
But because of learning a different language, it kind of like opens that door of, okay, this is because of this reason. So why would English or Korean have this reason for that? So I think that's kind of a very important tool if you want to even just teach a language in the first place.
Right. Yes.
It's pretty interesting.
Yeah. What about your story? Like, your Korean is good, so...
My Korean's okay. It's okay. It's all right. I wish it was better. My story... Well, I mean, when it comes to learning a language, technically my first language was Spanish. Because kind of like Korea, in the US, everyone must learn Spanish. And so it was kind of similar to Korean, like tests. It was always like kind of test Spanish. And so I learned Spanish since, 4th grade. So 4th grade, 5th grade till high school. So 8-9 years of Spanish.
Okay.
And
it's mandatory for every American student.
At least in elementary school and middle school.
Oh, okay.
But high school, you can choose whatever is available at your high school. So I did that, but I know when I was learning it, like I didn't really find myself like, wow, I really want to get good at this. So I was kind of just like going through the motions is a phrase you can say for it, which means kind of like just putting in what's required. I was going through the motions, not really like, oh, I want to learn this. And so then kind of like as I was learning Spanish, so when I was young, I started watching Korean shows and with my family. And I was like, this is kind of interesting. And I started learning like just small words here and there just from watching the show. So like, I think the first ever in Korean word I learned wasn't 안녕하세요. It was 그럼.
그럼.
Because on the subtitles, whenever they said 그럼, it would show then. Right. And it was very like, I learned it so easily because it was just like, so that was my first Korean word I learned.
Right.
And when I learned it, it was kind of like, I don't know, it felt kind of like, what can I say? It was like, it felt like I wanted to keep going. And so, and then I started watching like Korean YouTube and things like that. And then in high school, I bought my first Korean like study book. And that's when I like started learning the alphabet, how to write it, all that sort of thing. So that's when I kind of first started like actually like sitting down. I'm going to figure some of these things out. And then, because I did a study abroad in Korea too. So I was kind of preparing for that in a way. So I started, studying, reading, kind of writing, doing some speaking. I had a Korean girlfriend in college for a bit. So that kind of helped a little bit too.
Okay. But like many people say that having a date as a native speaker is the fastest way to learn a language.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
I mean, it definitely made me want to. She was Gyopo. She was Korean American, but her parents were from Korea, so she was basically fluent. To be honest, I didn't really like. I wasn't that focused on it at the time. I was kind of like still kind of young, and just kind of was like. I was not really like focused on like, okay, I want to get really good at this. I was kind of just having fun with it. And so then I could do very basic conversation, but like very basic, like just maybe my introduction and like, I'll meet you in front of the apartment, that sort of thing. And so, but I kept watching like Korean YouTube and stuff. Like I got into Korean Englishmen because they did this series with, I don't know if you've seen it. It's Josh and Ollie. It was called Jolly. And they would teach Ollie Korean.
Yeah,
and I would use those videos to kind of like, because I didn't want to buy the book. I didn't want to spend money. And it was like, okay, maybe I'll just watch this and I can learn with Ollie. And I learned quite a bit just from watching those, like numbers and just how to say like, this is water, this is that sort of thing. And I found it really fun. And then I started buying the books. But to be honest, I didn't really notice, because then I came to Korea 2023, so about a year and a half ago. But I was here for 3 months and my conversation didn't really change at all. Because I was studying, but I wasn't speaking to actual Koreans. I wasn't doing like full-on conversation. And I think the moment when I've noticed that my conversation increased the most was when I started doing phone calls. I would download these apps where you connect with random Korean people on the phone. And I got that inspiration from Korean Englishmen. Because they did an episode with Ollie trying to speak to these Korean people on the phone. And it was funny in that episode. Josh says to Ollie, he's like, I'm getting more and more nervous the more you do this. And Ollie's like, I'm getting more and more confident. And so it was kind of interesting.
Yes.
And I kind of felt that way too, because the first time I did it, I was like, oh my God, I've never kind of done this like conversation. I don't even know what to say. But I kept doing that. And that increased my natural conversation skills so much. So much.
Okay. How long have you been doing this calling?
Since March of last year.
Oh,
So
wow,
about,
really?
it'll be a year in March. I did it
okay.
almost every day.
Almost every day.
Yeah.
For how long?
Maybe like 30 minutes.
30 minutes.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Just to kind of like keep me in the like rhythm of speaking Korean naturally to people.
Okay.
And I learned so many like ways to like just have basic introduction conversation with people. So it was one of the biggest like factors in my speaking development, not necessarily reading or writing,
Okay.
but when it came to natural speaking.
So it matches you with random Korean person to speak with you for 30 minutes?
No. It's like you match with for 7 minutes.
Oh.
If you guys like the conversation, if it's like fun and you enjoy it, you can like continue speaking.
Wow. Okay.
But obviously if you don't like it, you just find a new person.
Do you need to pay them or is it free?
Oh no, it's free.
Oh, it's free.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's if both people enjoy it. They both have to agree. I want to talk to this person more. Okay, sure.
Oh, okay.
So I did that. And yeah, I still do it to this day when I have time. I'm a little bit, I have like, these days I have like some people I already talked to on the phone already from the app. So I don't necessarily need to do it that way. Because when I first came to Korea, it was hard to kind of find, my conversation skills weren't great. So it wasn't easy to meet people. And so I found this an easy way to just kind of like get repetition down. So
Right.
that was kind of when my skills definitely, I saw an increase for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
I talk to my students that there are some standards that you are fluent in that language. So first, like if you can talk on the phone for more than 5 minutes, then you are fluent. And second, if you can differentiate between an or the, then you are fluent.
Well, I'm not fluent then because I can't explain it now. I'm kidding. I can explain it.
Yeah.
It's not super straightforward.
Yeah. So I'm kind of emphasizing that like so being fluent depends on this like little things like this
Right.
like subtle things. So that's why I say like that. And then third one is like you can't fight in that language, then you're fluent.
Yeah, I would. I think fighting is definitely like when you're mad and you're able to explain yourself like while you're mad. Yeah, that's definitely like you're doing pretty good.
Yes, right.
Because when you're kind of like hot-headed, your brain's kind of moving quick. Because there was this one time I was watching this video. And I think she was some like Thailand streamer, and she would speak in English. And one time it was a viral clip in the US. She's driving down the road in her car, and she usually does English streams, like English like video content. And this car cuts her off, right? And then all of a sudden she starts like swearing at this car in Thai, right? And it was like, oh, the native language came out. So
Yeah,
I think when you're angry, it definitely kind of like if you can speak in the other language when you're angry, it's pretty it is a very fluent sign.
Yes, right. So for you, just talking on the phone every day with native speakers for 30 minutes is the most helpful way, right?
I found it to be the most the closest I could get to like natural conversation.
Yes,
right?
yes.
And so it actually even helped me with like listening skills too, because I had no visual cues, right?
Right.
So you're only hearing. And so it made me really have to like force myself to know what they're saying. I can't express myself with my hands, right? There was no body language. So it was like, okay, either I know what they're saying or I don't know what they're saying.
Right.
So it was definitely, I learned a lot from it too.
Yes.
I find it very useful. But as I kept doing it, I got these scenarios where Koreans would just teach me like these slang words and not actually like useful Korean. So I started learning all these like slang words that people are like, why do you know that? And I'm like, it's just what I'm learning these days. So it was kind of fun.
Yeah.
But
But you know, like good thing about using a slang is like it makes you feel more familiar. You know,
For sure.
So we feel close to you if you use slang, right? So yeah, I think it's good. It's good.
Yeah. But in Korea, the slang words are so like, the next day it's lame, or oh wow, it's so cool today. Then you say it tomorrow. Oh, that's lame. Why are you saying that? So it kind of was like, I enjoyed it at the time, but then I realized it felt kind of a bit like I took it with a grain of salt, because I always noticed that people would kind of be like, oh, that's kind of like an old term.
Yes.
And so these days I
very
just
fast.
I only take some of the words and use them. So
Right.
usually the useful ones, like kebake.
Yes. You use kebake a lot, right?
I use it all the time.
Yeah.
Because in English you just say it depends, right? But in Korean, if you want to say it depends, it's like 타라 달라요, right? 타래 달라요.
그때 달라요.
Yeah.
그때
그때 달라요.
Right.
And it's like 약간, it's very like hard to pronounce for me a little bit. Where if I just say kebake, it's so much easier.
Do Americans really use expressions like case by case?
You can say it's case by case, but usually people just say it depends.
Right.
Yeah. It depends, by person. It depends on the restaurant. It's the most commonly used. That was good.
And I think having friends is very, very important to improve your language skill as well.
Yeah.
So back to that friend story that I taught Korean, she and I became friends ultimately, and then she brought me her friends group. So she already had this like native English speaker teacher group here. So they are all native speakers, and I ended up like being friends with them as well. So I kind of was exposed to this English speaking environment.
Yeah.
Thanks
like group
to
conversation.
her. Yes, thanks to her. So I got a lot of chances to be exposed with English, and I needed to speak English to them and to her as well. So that was my chance to prove myself that, I studied this and they are really using this,
right.
And I just knew it in my brain, but I just could have a chance to speak out loud. So that really helped me in terms of speaking. So
that's, I mean, to be honest, if you can like participate in a group conversation, that's also a good sign of fluency, because that's when I realized I'm still not great in Korean, because in group conversations, like you said, it's moving so quick.
Right.
And like you're thinking of what to say, and then by the time you say it, they've moved on.
Yeah.
Right. And you're like, and then to be honest, it's a little bit like 불쌍해.
Yeah. Right.
Because you want to participate, but then you're not sure if it's like, is this the right time to say this? Sometimes you don't know, because it takes a while to process.
Right.
So that's definitely been a challenge for me when it comes to like Korean conversation.
Yes.
So have you had any like similar challenges with English?
Of course. When I firstly went to America when I was 22, like it happened the same to me. I felt so foolish at the time. So I once had this conversation with my Korean friend, and I was telling her like, hey, I think my brain is full of gold, but all I say is full of shit.
Yeah.
Because like sounds so clumsy, awkward, and weird in every situation. Because like it takes me so long time to think of like next sentence.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't even focus on the situation, thinking what to say. So I just couldn't even listen to what he or she said to me. So I was like, yeah.
I know.
Yeah. So I felt like a baby at the time, even though I was 22 already. So yes, I was kind of 불쌍해 too.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. Have you, this is kind of something I've experienced. I found when I would speak Korean with another person, I found that when I spoke with a woman, I could understand way more than when I spoke with a man.
Why do you think so?
I think based off of personal experience, when the man talks, it's very like, it's a little bit quicker and it's a little bit like mushed together. It's a little bit like,
Yeah.
when the girl talks, it's usually a little bit slower and like it's pronounced cleaner. And I'm not sure why that is. Obviously, it's not every case, but overall, I'd say it happens more often that way. So, yeah, that was something I had to get used to too, because I found myself when I was talking to a girl, I could understand so much more. But then when I was talking to a guy, it'd be like, what?
Okay.
What did you say? And then they'd be like, what? What did you say?
Okay.
So that was something I experienced. I don't know. Did you have that experience too?
Not exactly.
Not really?
I think
Interesting.
it depends more on, I don't know for if it's true or not, but for English speakers, I think it depends more on their backgrounds or their habits or their way of speaking or where they are from.
Yeah.
Not by the genders, I guess. But here only Koreans use Korean. So probably like the gender difference could be like showing more vividly, I guess. But there are so many different English speakers, so you cannot like categorize like which pronunciation is very hard to listen to. I guess it depends more on the person for English, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. And because English has so many different, like you were saying, like accents, right? There's like the West Coast accent, which is what I have. There's East Coast accent. There's Southern accent. This is all in the US. Then you got, British accent. Even these days, like Indian accent is considered kind of a thing.
Australian accent.
Yeah, Australian accent. Australian English is hard.
Yes,
By the
very,
way.
very hard.
It's very like when Australians talk, it's very like quick and there's so much like slang that even sometimes I can't understand it. I'm like, because like when my mom went to Australia, they came up to her and they were like, "Oh, you watched the gridiron, blah blah blah," something like that. My mom's like, "What is the gridiron?"
Okay.
And they were talking about American football, and so "Oh, you watched the gridiron." Right? My mom's like, what? So there's all these different words they even use too.
Right.
So it's kind of interesting for sure. Yeah. But I know Korean has like different dialects too. Like there's like Daegu has like, or I guess Daegu Busan is kind of similar, right? For dialects.
Yes, Daegu Busan is 경상도 accent, and Gwangju has 전라도 accent. Like there's 충청도 accent, 강원도 accent, like so many different dialects.
전라북도 is like 그러니까이, right? Isn't that right?
Yes,
그러니까이.
그러니까잉. Yes, like 뭐뭐잉 is
그러니까이.
like 전라도 accent.
One day,
Yes. Oh, you got it.
one day I was with these like 아저씨들s. I was eating lunch with these 아저씨들s, and I swear they said 그러니까이 like every 5 seconds.
Yes,
And I'm like,
yes.
I think this is some satori I'm hearing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Oh,
like, I've
that's
never heard
very, very
그러니까이.
funny. Yeah. Yes,
So,
그러니까잉. Oh.
When it came to like learning different accents, was there one you found easier than others?
Easier than others. I was so exposed to American accent from my
Like Western
little
accent,
ages.
kind of?
Yes.
Yeah.
So when I firstly was exposed to British accents, it was really hard to listen to at first because that was really, really different.
Yeah.
But after listening to it like so many times, I got to use it. but for Australian accents, when I firstly met Australian people, it was really, really hard to understand.
Yeah, it's hard for me too.
Yeah, so that relieved me actually. But at first I was like, oh, I studied so much for English and I just couldn't understand them, you know? Like that was kind of shocking to me when I firstly met Australian people.
I mean, British accent is interesting because they don't really pronounce like the T's. Like letters have different pronunciations. Like for example, like H, right? They say H, not H. Or like in the T sound is like usually not pronounced. So like instead of water, they say water, right? So like there's almost no T sound,
yes.
which is kind of interesting. I read this book and it was saying that the British accent was actually made to like a long time ago. That the British accent was made to separate poor people from rich people.
Really?
The rich people made the British accent to be considered like posh. Do you know the word posh? Posh means like you like rich stuff. And so like a long time ago, I forgot what year it was, but they made the British accent and it became so popular, everyone just started using it.
Okay.
So it was originally to like separate wealthy from not wealthy a long time ago, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
So anyway, but language learning is kind of just I think the best way for language learning is just doing it every day.
Yes.
Just even 10 minutes is enough
Yes.
because it keeps your brain kind of with the patterns of the language. If you don't do it every day, your brain kind of like loses it a little bit. So
Yes.
That's kinda how I
If
see
you just like keep doing it, like at least for language, then you will get there.
yeah,
Eventually.
100%.
Yes. Yeah.
Like when people are telling me like, how do I get good at English? I'm like, just practice it for 10 minutes.
Yes.
That's all you need to do.
Yes.
And they're like, what?
All right.
But they kind of don't quite I think they think it requires this huge amount of effort, but it's just kind of your brain getting used to it a little bit is what it is.
I totally agree. So I guess for English game, the longer you hold, then the more chance you will win, you know? So the longer is the key point, I guess.
Yeah, it's consistency and just, I think finding what makes you want to learn it. For example, like when it comes to working out, the best workout is the one you like the most. I think the same thing might apply to language. The best way to learn is the one you like the most.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah.
kind of finding that and just doing it a little bit every day.
Yeah,
So.
I totally agree. Yeah, so I like told you about the first moment that I met English, and I fell in love with it at the like love at first sight.
That's impressive actually.
Yeah,
Because
so,
most students are like when I teach, right? Younger students, I'd say 90% don't care.
yeah, I know. I guess.
60% really don't want to be there, and maybe 10% are like,
Yes.
I'm ready to learn today.
Yeah.
So
right.
I'm sure your mom was delighted
Yes.
with that
For
information.
sure. For sure. Yeah.
So
Okay.
I found that interesting.
Yeah. So I think in the future we can share more detailed way of like how we improved our language skills and like what could be helpful for language learners as well.
Yeah, definitely. We can give
Yeah.
it kind of a more detailed kind of pangbop.
Right. Yes.
Cool. Well,
So let's wrap it up here and just subscribe and leave likes and comments and just leave comments for what Ian and you guys want us to talk about.
yeah,
Okay.
sure. All right.
So
Bye-bye.
yeah, bye.
Nice.
PeachCast.